General Rain stood tall in his black uniform, looking out of the window of the Alliance Hall. The stars outside shimmered like cold silver dust. Today was supposed to be a day of peace. A treaty had been signed. The great powers, humans and Avalik, had finally ended their long-standing tension. But for Rain, the real surprise was not the peace treaty. It was the part that came with it, marriage. He had just become the husband of Princess Jera, the alien daughter of the Avalik High Speaker. Jera stood beside him in silence. Her violet eyes didn't blink much. Her skin had a soft glow, like polished stone, and her long dark hair was braided with small silver rings. She was graceful, intelligent, and calm, but Rain didn't trust calm people. She hadn't smiled even once during the ceremony. He didn't either. The marriage had been decided by leaders, not hearts, a symbol, they said, a bridge between two species. Rain agreed to it for one reason: to protect his people. The war had taken too many lives. If a wedding could stop more bloodshed, he would do it, but in his mind, one question remained: could this alien princess truly survive in a human world? Could she handle life beyond palaces and meetings? He planned to find out. The ship carrying them to Earth's moon base was silent. Jera sat straight in her seat, reading a glowing panel of Avalik symbols. Rain watched her from the other side. "You're reading military files," he said. "I must know the systems my people have joined," she replied without looking up. "You didn't ask for permission?" "I do not need it." Her voice was soft but firm. No anger, no fear. Rain raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He liked strong minds, but only if they listened. Later that day, he walked into the command center of Lunar Base 7 with Jera beside him. The soldiers saluted quickly. Some looked confused seeing an alien in royal clothes walking calmly beside their general. "This is Princess Jera," Rain announced. "She will observe base functions for the next week." Whispers began. Some soldiers didn't trust the Avalik. Some didn't like the marriage. Others were just curious. But none of them dared speak loudly. Rayn turned to his aide, Officer Hamza. "Schedule her for non-critical rounds, food storage, repair halls, civil quarters." Hamza blinked. "Sir, she's royalty. She's also my wife," Rain said. "She wants to understand humans. Let her see the real life." Jera didn't object. She simply nodded. Over the next few days, Rain observed her quietly. In the food halls. She didn't complain about the dry rations. Instead, she asked the cooks how ingredients were stored in low gravity. In the repair rooms, she watched engineers working on damaged bots. She didn't interrupt. She took notes. When someone dropped a tool near her, she picked it up without a word and handed it back. Even the children of the civil quarters, whose parents worked on the base, were curious about her. Jera bent down to their level and spoke gently, teaching them a few words in her language. She never forced anyone to listen. But people started watching her, respecting her. Rain noticed this wasn't supposed to happen. He muttered to Hamza one evening. "What, sir?" She was supposed to break, struggle, complain. Hamza raised an eyebrow. "You wanted her to fail. I wanted to see what she was made of," Rain said. "That's how humans learn. Maybe Avalik learned differently." Rain didn't answer. On the 6th day, he took Jera to the outer field, an abandoned training ground with broken drones and old mech suits. Dust floated in low gravity. The wind outside was dry and sharp. "You asked to understand human strength," Rain said. "Try this." He tossed her a light military suit. "We train in these, basic level." Jera looked at it, heavy, unfitted. "For me, adapt," Rain replied. To his surprise, she said nothing. She walked behind a shield wall and returned a few minutes later, wearing the suit. It hung loose in places, but she moved steadily. Rain activated a bot. A basic practice drone flew into the air, dodging and spinning. Jera watched it closely, then turned to him. "Rules?" she asked. "No rules. Just hit it." She stared at the drone. For 10 long seconds, she didn't move. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, she jumped forward, balanced her body perfectly in the light gravity, and threw a small stone from the ground fast and straight. The stone hit the drone's sensor. The machine blinked and dropped. Hamza whistled. First try, he said. Y and crossed his arms. Lucky shot. Gerald walked back to him, removed the suit, and placed it gently on the bench. You wanted to test me, she said, looking directly into his eyes. Now I will ask you something. Rain stared back. Why are you so afraid of peace, General? That question stayed with him all night. He couldn't sleep in his years of war. He had tested thousands of soldiers. Some passed, most failed. But none of them asked him a question like that. He had believed Gerald was delicate, quiet, controlled. But now he saw something else, steel under silk. Maybe the test wasn't hers. Maybe it was his. The morning light on Lunar Base 7 was always cold and pale. It filtered through the glass ceiling of the observation dome, washing everything in a soft blue glow. General Rain stood silently, hands behind his back, watching Earth's reflection. In the distance, he wasn't thinking about the stars today. His mind was fixed on one thing, Princess Jera. She had passed the first stage of his silent test. She didn't complain, didn't fail, and didn't show weakness. Instead, she adapted, calmly, quietly. Rain was surprised but not yet convinced. Maybe she prepared for life on a base. He thought, let's see how she handles chaos. He turned to his aide, Hamza, who stood nearby with a report tablet. Ready the ship, Rain said. We're heading to Veltra 4. Hamza blinked. Veltra 4. Sir, that's a conflict zone. Minor unrest, Rain said. A few angry farmers and old rebels. I want her to see a less controlled place. Hamza looked unsure. She's not trained for that. Rain's eyes narrowed. She wants to understand humans, then let her see who we really are. Later that day, Jera stepped into the small ship without a word. She wore simple clothing, no royal jewels, no flowing robes. Just a gray travel suit and a thin scarf wrapped around her head. Rain watched her quietly. Have you heard of Veltra 4? He asked. Yes, she replied. A border colony, human, settlers, limited resources. Disagreements with Central Command, more than disagreements. Rain said, sometimes weapons, sometimes bombs. Jera nodded. Then I will listen carefully. The ship jumped into hyperspace, silent except for the soft hum of the engine. Rain folded his arms, watching her again. She wasn't afraid. That bothered him more than he liked to admit. When they landed, Veltra 4 was exactly as Rain remembered: dry lands, rough winds, and tired-looking buildings made of metal scraps. Dust clouds rolled in the distance, and broken farming bots stood like statues in the fields. Commander Deva, the officer in charge of the colony base, greeted them. General Rain, she said with a salute. And your guest? My wife, Rain said. She's here to observe. Deva's eyebrows lifted, but she said nothing. Very well. But be warned, the locals aren't happy today. There was a stolen supply shipment last night. Some blame the patrols. Good, Rain said under his breath. Let's see what she does now. They moved through the settlement slowly. People stared. Some whispered. Jera walked with calm steps, her scarf now loose, revealing her glowing skin and bright eyes. The humans had never seen someone like her before. Children hid behind fences. Farmers crossed their arms and glared. One old woman spat on the ground as they passed. Aliens ruin our trade routes, she growled. Jera did not reply. She only looked into the woman's eyes, then nodded gently. Rain led her into the central hall, where an argument was already happening. 3 farmers were yelling at the supply chief. We saw the drone fly past our land, one shouted. Your men took the crates. It was bandits, the chief argued. You want food. Prove you're not hiding it. Jera stepped forward. May I speak? She asked softly. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Ray and watched closely. What do you know about our problems? A farmer snapped. Jera walked toward the argument table. I know what it means to protect a people with limited hands and too many mouths, she said. Let us solve this without shouting. She pointed at the drone log file screen on the wall. This map shows the flight path. It passed near 3 areas: yours, theirs, and the canyon edge. We've been farming that land for 5 years. One man said. Then you would not damage the only food system that keeps your family alive. Jera replied calmly. Her eyes moved to the second farmer. Your land is near the canyon. Bandits are known to hide there. She looked at the chief. Do you patrol that zone often? He hesitated. It's difficult terrain. Then perhaps the answer is not blame, she said, but shared defense. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rain cleared his throat. She suggests we set up a rotating watch system. Farmers and guards together, shared risk. Shared safety. People looked around. The anger faded slowly. Some nodded, others remained quiet, but the tension dropped. Commander Deva pulled Rain aside. She handled that better than I would have. Rain didn't answer. His eyes were on Jera again, calm, clear, in control. Later that evening, Rain sat alone on a crate outside the base building. Jera joined him, sitting on a wooden bench nearby. I was wrong, he said suddenly. Jera looked at him. About what? I thought you would break under pressure. I thought this place would scare you. She tilted her head. Fear and weakness are not the same. I have felt fear, but I learned to walk with it, not run from it. Rain sighed. You've impressed a lot of people. I did not come to impress. She replied, I came to understand. And what have you understood? Jera was quiet for a moment. Humans burn bright, she said. You live fast, fight hard, and speak with fire. But sometimes you forget to listen. Rain looked at her. And the Avalek. What do we forget? About you? She smiled faintly for the first time. That we have hearts, too. The wind picked up, and the stars above began to shine through the clearing dust. For the first time since their marriage, Rain saw Jera not as a stranger, not as a symbol, but as someone real, someone strong, and perhaps someone who could teach him more than he had ever imagined. 3 days had passed on Veltrafor. Rain watched the colony slowly return to a strange kind of calm. The farmers had stopped arguing. The stolen supply issue had faded. A shared patrol system was already in motion. Commander Dave even sent a message to Central Command saying tensions had reduced by 40%. But Rain was still unsettled. Every time he looked at Jera, he saw something new. She had not only adapted to this dusty, chaotic place, she had improved it. He stood outside the small control tower, arms folded, staring at the dry plains in the distance. Jera was nearby, speaking with a group of young mechanics. She held a small farming drone in her hands, her fingers moving over it like she'd worked with machines all her life. She's helping them upgrade the irrigation software, Hamza said, walking up behind him. She doesn't even belong to this planet, Rain replied. Almost to himself, she didn't come to belong. She came to understand, Hamza said. Maybe that's why she's succeeding. Rain didn't respond. He was thinking of something else. A new test, a harder one. That night, he gave Commander Deva a quiet order. There's an old rebel route northeast of here, he said. I want to take her there, without full backup. Deva frowned. Sir, those routes are still dangerous. That's the point, Rain said. We'll go and check the area, then return. I want to see how she reacts when things truly go wrong. Hamza, standing nearby, opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. He knew Rain had made up his mind. The next morning, a small 4-person scout team prepared for the trip. Rain, Jera, Hamza, and a young local guide named Liren. They took a light ground transport across the dry plains, bouncing over rocks and dust clouds. The vehicle rattled with every turn. Jera sat quietly, her eyes watching the changing land. She asked no questions, even when the map showed their path moving close to known rebel zones. Why this route? She asked once, to check on a possible fuel leak, Rain replied. Jera didn't believe him, but she said nothing more. After 2 hours of travel, the vehicle suddenly stopped. The engine made a strange clicking sound and shut off. Hamza tried restarting it. It's not responding, sir. Might be a jammed coolant line. Rain climbed out and looked around. They were in a narrow rocky valley, far from the colony base. The sun was dim behind a thick cloud. The wind was picking up. I'll check the engine manually, he said. Jera stepped out beside him. She scanned the area, her hand lightly touching her waist where a small communicator sat. Then Liren shouted. From the rear. We've got movement north ridge. Rain turned sharply. He saw 3 figures on the cliff, armed. Watching them get cover, Rain ordered. Jared didn't run. She crouched behind the vehicle and pulled up her communicator screen. They are not attacking, she said calmly. They are watching. Same thing, Rain said. Drawing his sidearm, Jared held up a hand. Let me try something, Rain frowned. You want to talk to them, she nodded. This is not a council meeting, Princess. No, she said, her voice calm. But it is a test. Isn't it? Rain's eyes narrowed. She had figured it out. Jared stood slowly, hands raised, and spoke a sentence in an old Earth border dialect one Rain barely recognized. The figures on the ridge didn't move, but they seemed to listen. Then she said something in her own Avalek tongue. Her voice rose and fell like wind over mountains. After a moment, the rebels slowly stepped back and disappeared over the ridge. Hamza blinked. They left. Rain stared at her. How did you know their language? I studied it, she said. Before the wedding. Why? Because I wanted to survive. Rain lowered his weapon, unsure of what to say. They returned to the colony later that evening. No one spoke much on the way back. In the control room, Rain sat at his desk, reading reports. His mind wasn't on the numbers. ZHR entered quietly. You sent me there to see if I would panic, she said. To see if I could survive danger. Rain looked at her. Yes, I did survive. And I kept you alive, too. He didn't deny it. Jared stepped closer. General, I'm not angry. But I want to ask, how many more tests will you give me? Rain stood up. As many as it takes. To prove what? Rain paused. He didn't have a good answer. He only said, you don't belong to our world. You don't know our pain, our cost of war. Jared's eyes did not look away. Do you know mine? Rain froze. We lost 3 homeworlds in the time your people lost 1 colony, she said. My brother disappeared in a wormhole battle. My mother negotiated peace while injured. And I was married to a human general without being asked what I wanted. Her voice remained soft, but it struck deep. You think I do not understand war, she whispered. You think I do not carry scars. Rain felt something shift inside him. The weight of her words settled in his chest. For the first time, he saw her not just as calm or clever, but as someone who had carried pain. Hidden under silence, he sat back down slowly. Jared stepped back, ready to leave. But then he spoke again. You said something to the rebels, he said. In Avalek. What did it mean? She looked at him. It means, even when the stars burn, the wind still finds a path. That night, Rain stood again beneath the stars, alone. But this time, he didn't feel so sure of himself. The woman he had planned to test had just turned the test around. She had seen him, understood him, forgiven him, and for the first time, Rain wondered, was he the one being measured all along? General Rain walked through the halls of Lunar Base 7 after returning from Veltrafor. The walls felt colder than before. His boots echoed on the metal floor, but his mind was not focused on his steps. It was focused on her -ZH. He had planned each test with care. Small challenges to push her, quiet struggles to see her break. But she never did. Instead, she faced every trial with strength, calm, and wisdom. And now, she had started to ask her own questions. That made Rain uneasy. In the command center, he met with the base officers. A short update briefing was given. Supplies, patrol schedules, minor satellite damage. But his thoughts were elsewhere. His focus drifted. General? Hamza said quietly. Should we schedule the next colony inspection? Rain looked up. No, cancel it. Hamza looked surprised. Sir, I've tested enough colonies, Rain replied. There's something else I need to understand. Later that day, he requested Jared to meet him in the observatory dome. She arrived quietly, as she always did, wearing a long dark robe and a calm expression. The stars outside were shining brighter now. Earth hung in the sky like a gentle blue lantern. I owe you an explanation, Rain said. Jared said nothing. She only stood, watching him. I thought I could measure you, see if you were fit to stand beside a soldier, a human general. I thought maybe I could protect my world by watching for weakness. Shara spoke softly. And what did you find? Rain smiled slightly. Not weakness. He stepped closer to the window. But you knew, didn't you? That I was testing you? Yes, she replied. Why didn't you stop me? Call me out. Shara walked to his side. Because tests reveal more about the person giving them than the one taking them. That line hit Rain harder than any bullet he had ever faced. The next day, something strange happened. A high-level message arrived from the Avalik homeworld. A shuttle was coming. Shara was being requested to return, not permanently, but for an emergency session of the Speaker Council. The reason was marked as Strategic Review of Human-Avalik Relations. Rain met her in the base hangar as the shuttle prepared to land. You're leaving? He asked. Only for days, Shara replied. There are things my people must review. There's concern. Concern? Rain asked. About what? Shara looked into his eyes. About your doubts, about your tests, about whether this union is a symbol or a lie. Rain stepped back slightly. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. I don't blame you, Rain, but they need answers now. The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss, and Shara stepped inside. Rain watched her go, unsure why his chest felt heavier than it should have. Over the next few days, Rain felt her absence in every corner of the base. It wasn't just the quiet. It was the lack of balance. Without Shara's presence, the halls felt emptier, like a melody missing its rhythm. Hamza noticed it too. You miss her, he said one evening as they reviewed training plans. Rain didn't reply. You tested her again and again. But she never pushed back, Hamza said. Now that she's gone, do you feel stronger? Rain rubbed his forehead. No, I feel unsure. Hamza gave a small smile. That's what growth feels like, sir. 4 days later, Shara returned. Her shuttle landed silently in the early morning. Rain was already there, waiting beside the landing pad. When she stepped out, she looked calm, but there was something in her eyes, something different. Did the council say something serious? He asked. Yes, she said. They approved my choice, but they warned me. Warned you? She nodded. They said that if you continue to doubt this alliance, they will ask me to step down from it. Rain's fist tightened. They want you to leave. No, Shara said softly. They want you to choose. Rain looked confused. Choose what? She took a step forward. To stop testing me. To stop treating me like an experiment. To start treating me like a partner. Rain felt his heart beat heavier. The stars above them seemed still, but inside him, a storm was moving. Later that evening, Rain invited Shara to a small mountain observatory on the far edge of the moon base. It was quiet there, away from the others. They sat together on a metal bench, the sky above filled with stars. I want to tell you something, Rain said. No uniforms, no titles, just me. Shara looked at him, waiting. I became a general after losing half my team in the Kando War, he said. I led them straight into a trap. My orders, my call. I watched brave people die. Shara's face softened. I told myself from that day I'd never trust blindly again, Rain said. I would test everything, every person, every plan, even peace. Shara gently reached out, placing her hand over his. And what do you see in me now? She asked. Rain looked at her hand. It was warm, real. Not a symbol, not a political tool. A living person who had faced loss just like him. I see someone stronger than I ever expected. He whispered, stronger than me. Shara smiled only. The second time he had ever seen her do so. That night, as they walked back to the main base together, Rain felt something change inside him. Not just his opinion, not just his plans, but his heart. The tests were over. Now, he wanted to learn, not judge, and he knew that the game had turned. He was no longer the one in control. But strangely, he was okay with that. The shuttle landed softly on the lush green plains of the Avalik homeworld, Zather. The air smelled different here, fresh, sweet, and alive with the sounds of strange birds and rustling leaves. It was a world far from the dry moons and dusty colonies Rain had grown used to. General Rain stepped off the ship, his boots sinking slightly into the soft moss beneath him. Beside him, Shara walked confidently, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "This is home," she said quietly. Rand nodded, looking around in awe. Towering trees with silver leaves stretched to the sky. Rivers glittered like ribbons of light between the hills. Strange structures rose from the ground, smooth, curved buildings that seemed part of the forest itself. Jera led him down a stone path toward the city of Valnor, the heart of Avolic civilization. Along the way, Rand noticed something new. The people of Zathar moved with a quiet grace, their eyes bright with knowledge and purpose. Children played under the watchful eyes of elders. Soldiers trained not with weapons, but with slow, flowing movements that reminded Rand of dance. He asked Jera, "Why do your warriors move like this?" She smiled softly. "Our strength is not in force, but in unity. We fight as one mind, one body, every motion, every thought connected." Rand was intrigued but still unsure. In the grand hall of the Speaker Council, Rand met Jera's mother, the High Speaker Aveline. She was regal and kind, with eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface. "Welcome, General," she said. "We honor your courage in joining this alliance." Rand bowed respectfully. The council discussed serious matters: threats at the galaxy's edge, tensions between species, and the fragile peace. But Rand's mind was focused on something else: the way Jera spoke, the way her people moved and thought. After the meeting, Jera took Rand to a training ground outside the city. "Watch carefully," she said. The warriors began their drills. But these were not ordinary drills. They moved with precision and calm, communicating silently through gestures and shared glances. Their training was a dance of harmony, not a clash of weapons. Ryan watched in silence as they lifted enormous stones together, shifting their weight perfectly in time. "How do you fight enemies like this?" Rand asked. Jera looked at him. "We don't just fight enemies. We protect our world. We listen to the land and each other. Strength is balance." Rand thought of his own battles: loud explosions, harsh orders, and many losses. That evening, Jera and Rand walked through the city gardens. Silver flowers glowed softly under the twin moons. The air was warm and peaceful. "You said your people lost 3 homeworlds," Rand said quietly. Jera nodded. "War swept across the stars. We hid, we fought, and we survived. But the cost was great." Rand looked at her with new respect. "My people," she continued, "have learned to live not as conquerors, but as caretakers. We fight, yes, but with wisdom." Rand sighed. "I have much to learn." Jera smiled gently. "And I want to learn from you about courage, about fire." The next day, news arrived of a new threat: a fleet of unknown ships moving toward their border. The Speaker Council called for action. Ryan stood with Jera before the council, offering his support. "This is our chance," he said, "to show what humans and Avolic can do together." Jera nodded. "Together, we are stronger." Before leaving Zathar, Rand took one last look at the land and sky. He understood now that strength was not only force or strategy, it was connection, trust, respect, and standing beside Jera. He felt ready to face the future not as a general testing a stranger, but as a partner standing with someone who had already passed every test. The air on the command deck of Lunar Base 7 was tense. Screens flickered with alerts. The voice of the operations officer crackled over the speaker. "Unknown fleet detected near the eastern border. Moving fast. No identification, General." Rand stood beside Princess Jera, who watched the displays with calm eyes. The silent tension between them was thick, but it was different from before. They no longer faced each other as challenger and tested. They were partners, ready to meet the unknown together. This fleet could be pirates or worse. Rand said quietly, "We must respond quickly." Jera turned to him, her voice steady. "Patience." Rand, "Acting too fast could trap us. Let me analyze their pattern." Rand hesitated. His human instinct screamed to strike first. But he had learned from Jera's patience, her wisdom. "Very well," he said. "Your plan." Over the next hours, Jera worked with the base's analysts. She used her MindLink technology to gather data from remote sensors, watching enemy movements in real time. Her alien mind processed patterns and possibilities far faster than any human system. The unknown fleet circled, probing defenses without attacking. Jera noticed their slow, careful moves. They weren't reckless pirates. They were calculating. Rain watched, amazed. Finally, Jera spoke. They seek a prize, a valuable energy source nearby. If we strike now, they will retreat and regroup. We need to cut their supply lines first. Rain nodded slowly. How? Jera smiled faintly. By joining our forces, not just humans, but the Avolic warriors trained in harmony. Together, we can outmaneuver them. He reached for his comlink. Prepare the joint fleet. This is no longer a test. It's a real battle. The battle was not like any Rain had fought before. The human ships moved with power and force, blasting enemy vessels with heavy weapons. But the Avolic ships danced through the stars, weaving silently between laser blasts, coordinated through mind links and silent commands. Jera commanded the combined fleet from the center ship, her mind connecting to pilots, sharing strategies. Faster than words could travel, Rain was at her side, issuing orders, but trusting her instincts. Together, they trapped the enemy fleet in a narrow asteroid field. The alien ships moved like shadows, cutting off escape routes. The humans blasted with precision. The enemy, caught between strength and grace, surrendered. After the battle, Rain and Jera stood on the bridge. Watching the stars return to quiet, Rain turned to her. You saved many lives today. Jera looked at him, eyes shining. We saved many lives together. He smiled. I am proud to fight by your side. She reached for his hand. And I am proud to stand with you. But even in victory, the weight of the war lingered. Back at the base, the leaders met to discuss the future. Rain spoke openly. This alliance is no longer a symbol. It is a promise, a chance to build something new. Jera added, trust and understanding are stronger than any weapon. The council agreed to deepen cooperation between humans and Avolic to prepare for any threat. That night, Rain stood under the stars, thinking about the journey, the tests, the lessons. The woman who had changed his life, he no longer saw Jera as an alien princess to be tested. He saw her as a partner, a leader, and a friend. The war had tested him to push him to learn, to change, to grow, and together they would face the future no longer as separate worlds, but as one. The morning sun cast a soft golden light across Lunar Base 7. General Rain stood on the observation deck, looking out at Earth, a beautiful blue marble floating in the vast blackness. Beside him stood Princess Jera, no longer just an alien figure of mystery, but a trusted partner and friend. They had come a long way from a forced marriage and silent test to a true alliance of two species. Rain turned to Jera, his face serious but full of respect. I have something to say, he began. Jera looked at him with calm eyes, waiting. I want the armies to know the truth. Rain said, no more secrets, no more tests. She nodded slowly. Later that day, in the Great Hall of Lunar Base 7, soldiers, officers, and diplomats gathered. The air buzzed with quiet anticipation. General Rain stepped forward. Today, he began, I stand not just as your general, but as a man who has learned. I once thought I could test and judge those around me. I thought strength meant control. He looked at Jera. I was wrong. Jera stepped forward, her voice steady. Strength comes from trust, from understanding, from standing together. The crowd murmured. Many soldiers exchanged surprised glances. Some whispered, the general has changed. Rain smiled softly. This marriage, this alliance, it is no longer a symbol. It is a truth, a promise to face the stars together, side by side. Over the following weeks, Rain and Jera worked tirelessly. They trained soldiers in new ways, combining human courage with Avolic harmony. They planned missions that respected both cultures and strengths. Their leadership brought hope. The joint forces became stronger and more united than anyone had imagined. One evening, as the base quieted, Rain and Jera walked along the moon's surface under a blanket of stars. I never expected this journey, Rain said. I thought I was testing you, but it was I who was tested. Jera smiled warmly. And what did you learn? That strength is not just muscle or weapons. It's heart, it's trust, it's listening. She took his hand gently. Together, we are more than the sum of our parts. Rand squeezed her hand. Together, we are unstoppable, far from the moon, in distant galaxies. Unknown threats still loomed, but now, humanity and the Avolics stood united. Two worlds. One future. The story of a human general who wanted to test his alien wife became a legend not of suspicion, but of respect and partnership. And as they faced the stars, they knew one thing clearly. Together, they could overcome anything. End of story.